Welcome back to Our World with Black Enterprise. At the height of his career, John Thompson was the only African American to lead a major U.S. technology company. This year, Black Enterprise honored him with its Tech Trailblazer of the Year award. Chief Content Officer Derek Dingle has more.
John Thompson is perhaps one of the highest-ranking African Americans in the tech world, moving from senior management positions at IBM to the C-suite at Symantec, and now the chairmanship of Microsoft. Ironically, he says his path to success began with an act of racism.
I went out on a call with another rep, and a customer made a very, very ugly statement saying, "Don't bring him back here anymore." And when he said that, that kind of pushed me back, and I kind of went, oh. And I went to my branch manager, and IBM had a policy back in those days that said, we won't do business with customers who won't do business with our representatives. And the end result was I was not the rep, but I knew that I was going to have to sell to people like that person in Dade City, Florida, if you will. And so rather than start selling new accounts and then selling mid-size accounts and then selling large accounts, I got immediately promoted or injected into a very, very large account environment where I sold to the General Telephone Company. And so the normal path would be, 5 to 6 years to get to a big account environment. I got there right out of sales school. And as a result of that, my career literally accelerated from a very, very early pace.
As you went through position to position, what were the greatest challenges that you faced? And what were the lessons that you learned from those challenges at IBM?
I can remember when I was asked to consider a job in Boston. And one of the top African Americans in the company at that time was in Boston, and I called him and said, gee, should I take this job? And his answer was absolutely not. It's the worst place in the world for an African American to work. And this was the late 70s. And I decided I'm going to do it anyway. Well, it was the best decision I ever made, because I ended up having a guy named Paul Palmer. He got me connected to the chairman of the board, which ultimately led me to have a year off from IBM to go to MIT Sloan School, where they paid my tuition, paid my salary. And then my next assignment after that was to work in the corporate office for the chairman of the board as the transition was going on from one CEO to the next. And so had I listened to my good friend, that African American leader who said, don't take that job, guess what? I probably wouldn't have the career I have today.
Actually, that sparks a question. A number of African Americans tend not to take jobs in the so-called outposts or environments that they may feel uncomfortable with.
I think that's a huge mistake. You have to go to where the opportunity is.
Thompson's next opportunity was at Symantec, a major step after nearly 28 years at IBM.
I woke up one day and realized, I'm never going to get to run this place. And I think I have learned enough in all the experiences I've had here that I could actually run a company. And fortunately, I had been on the board of my first public company, a utility company in Northwest Indiana. And I had seen how that CEO operated. And I'd sat around a table with CEOs of all these other companies, and I kind of went, well, gee, they don't know any more than I do, and so I better take a shot.
You took Symantec from a $600 million company to a $6 billion company in 10 years. Actually, we named you the Black Enterprise Executive of the Year in 2004 for your achievements there.
I've had a personal philosophy about leaders, which is, I think leaders get stale after about 7 or 8 or 9 years. And so when my 10-year period was up, I was ready to move on, because I did not want to be the stale guy sitting in the chair while the company was trying to prosper.
Thompson had planned to call it quits after Symantec, but he says he turned out to be the prototype of a failed retiree.
One of the Microsoft board members, a gentleman named Jim Cash, who was an African-American Harvard professor, unbelievable guy. Jim calls and says, John, we'd like for you to consider joining the Microsoft board. And I said, well, Jim, you may not think of us as a competitor, but we think of you as a competitor. And so since I'm going to still be the chairman of Symantec, I can't join the Microsoft board. So he says, well, how long are you going to do that? I said, well, probably a year. And he says, okay, I'll call you back. So I joined the Microsoft board in March of 2012.
We've done a lot in terms of board coverage and African Americans getting on board and diversity of boards. I wanted to get your sense of the state of board diversity overall and what needs to be done to expand diversity, especially African Americans on boards.
Well, I think it's true that a more diverse board and a more diverse company, particularly one that's consumer focused or consumer facing, will do far better than one that's not. And I think boards or companies are finally coming to the realization that they have got to do more in this space. And fortunately, we're building a stronger African American base of leaders, and those leaders eventually will have a shot, because I know many, many companies are looking to diversify their boards for sure. So, not just ethnic diversity, but gender diversity as well.
Well, this has been a fascinating conversation. Thank you for spending
No, my pleasure. My pleasure.
And once again, congratulations for being our Tech Trailblazer of the Year.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm quite proud.
After the break, we recognize individuals who blazed several trails in Silicon Valley.